By now, you've heard about the verdict of former Minnesota police officer Derek Chauvin in the murder of George Floyd approximately 10,000 times. And I'm sure you've had more than your fill of opinions about it. Even the stories labeled news are mostly 80% opinion. I'm going to tell you the facts, including some that you might not have heard, and pass along some commentary from people who actually know what they're talking about. That way, when you inevitably run into someone spouting opinions, you can calmly reply with facts and reason. I won't do any good, but we got to start somewhere. But first, comment below and let me know what your thoughts are on the results of the trial. All right, the basic facts. The jury returned fairly quickly with a verdict of guilty on all 3 counts: second-degree unintentional murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. A guilty verdict was hardly unexpected given the emotional power of the video of Floyd saying he couldn't breathe. But it wasn't necessarily expected on all counts. Victoria Taft at PJ Media has got a pretty good roundup of other facts about the trial, such as the racial makeup of the jury and reactions to the verdict, as well as some reasons why it's certain there's going to be an appeal. Among the many potential grounds for appeal are the denial of a change of venue from Minneapolis. That was a mistake that became more obvious with each passing day. President Biden pronouncing Chauvin guilty while the trial was actually going on. And the threats of street violence by Representative Maxine Waters and the leftist mob, that is, if the jury didn't convict. The judge said the jurors had been instructed to disregard media reports. But would any reasonable person not suspect their verdict might have been influenced by fear if they knew there were threats of violence against a witness, police, the jurors, their families, their homes and businesses, and for that matter, the entire town? President Biden reacted to the verdict by presenting a dark vision of America. He described the nation that elected him as a place of systemic racism, where all black and brown people live in absolute fear that the police will kill them or kill their children just because they're walking home from the grocery store, driving their cars, or sleeping in their homes. Let me be clear. Not only is there no statistical evidence to justify this fear Biden said exists among minorities, there is very strong data that the Washington Post has gathered and made available that demonstrates that such fear is utterly unfounded. That is, unless you are a violent criminal. And it doesn't matter what your race, color, or creed may be. The fact is, there is less than a 1 in a million likelihood that if you're a black person, you're going to be killed by the police. That's being stopped by them. Those are actual numbers. Where Biden's description of America misses the mark the least is in regards to the big cities that have been run for decades by Democrats. Remember, Derek Chauvin was a member of the police force in Minneapolis, one of the most liberal cities in the country. There is not a single Republican on the city council there. And while most of the questions about the rightness or wrongness of the verdict center on whether the jury was intimidated or unduly influenced, legal experts such as Harvard Law professor emeritus Alan Dershowitz spoke to Fox News about some costly mistakes the defense made. Among them, not being tough enough in cross-examining the prosecution's forensic witnesses, making an erroneous statement about the law in the summation that forced the judge to pause and then instruct the jury to disregard, which is not something that usually impresses a jury, as well as deciding not to put Chauvin on the stand. Of course, that prevented the prosecution from badgering him into making a costly slip, but it also kept the jury from hearing him defend himself in his own words. That might have humanized him after the months of media demonization. And I want to remind you that there are 3 other officers still facing charges in George Floyd's death. Finally, while I understand the pain of George Floyd's family and why they held a press conference, I would offer them a friendly suggestion in good faith. If you want to make the case to Americans that we must never tolerate demonizing an ethnic group in ways that lead to the deaths of innocents, or allowing false charges based on race to destroy people's lives, are letting people who do those things face no accountability, then please reconsider making that argument with Al Sharpton standing next to you. I also want to make another observation and take a moment to address the consequences of Maxine Waters' despicable statement. Oh, that's right, there were no consequences, none. On Tuesday, the House voted on party lines, 216 to 212, to table GOP leader Kevin McCarthy's resolution to censure an action with no real consequence. In essence, simply a statement of disapproval. That's all it would have been. Representative Maxine Waters made a statement for her attempted jury intimidation by urging mob action if there wasn't a guilty verdict for Derek Chauvin. So much for the crazy theory that there are any moderate Democrats in the House who would actually choose upholding their oath to defend the Constitution over protecting a fellow party member. There's nothing more tribalistic and cliquey in our country today than an elected member of the Democratic Party. Voters in swing districts, I hope you'll remember this when the next election rolls around and your moderate Democrat representative gives you a big load of banana oil about how he or she puts principle ahead of partisanship. Recall, this is the same House that voted to impeach President Trump, saying he incited insurrection. And what he did was ask his supporters to peacefully and patriotically protest. Then they circled the wagons to protect Mad Maxine's blatantly violent rhetoric. Waters took her escape from even the least accountability with her typical hubris and lack of self-reflection. She called her critics racist and declared, "They don't seem to understand. They're not going to get me out of office because I'm here until I decide to retire." Her voters should sure feel silly. I mean, did they really think they had any say in how long Maxine stays in office? Of course not. Well, thanks for watching, and I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel below and clicking the notification bell. And if you want more of my news analysis and commentary, be sure to sign up for my newsletter at MikeHuckabee.com. As always, it is 100% completely free. Check out our second channel, Huckabee's Jukebox, for some great entertainment, and be sure to check back here tomorrow for more videos. That's it for this edition of The Breakdown. I'm Mike Huckabee.